Welcome to the Career Studio podcast, where we boil down the noise and focus on the core concepts essential for building an energizing career you love, one that is simply an extension of who you are and how you want to live your life. Anyone can do it. It's just a matter of knowing what to focus on. Hello, how are you? It feels kind of weird to ask that to someone who can't answer, but I hope you're doing well. It's been a beautiful few days here in New York. It's almost like we've mostly escaped the fierce winters that we normally have. I'm touching wood because now I'm going to get slapped in the face with a winter storm, but it's really been a nice winter here. Very sunny the past few weeks, and I feel very grateful. And I haven't necessarily talked about it that much on the podcast, but if you follow me on other channels, on my LinkedIn or in my emails, you'll know that I was pretty burned out at the start of the year. I kind of got to Costa Rica and I realized that I'd overdone it on all the stuff that I enjoyed doing. I'd kind of overextended myself. And so I have really been saying no to almost everything that isn't critical. Besides serving my clients and supporting my clients, I've said no to almost all the other activity that's required to run my business. I've just been mostly recycling old content and saying no to a lot of social engagements and just getting lots of sleep and hanging out at home and filling up my tank on excellent Netflix programs and really good books. And I'm kind of coming out the other side now, 6 weeks later, feeling a lot more energized, a lot more motivated to do things like strategic planning or producing content or developing ideas for new initiatives. So I'm feeling really energized and grateful for the mild winter. And that is the energy from which I'm recording the podcast today. So today I wanted to come on and talk about, I think I'm going to call this episode, Don't Update Your Resume, because what I wanted to talk about is basically that. How, one of the biggest mistakes I see people making when they feel lost or bored professionally is going to doing a bunch of stuff that actually isn't going to help them make a really intentional and aligned next step. And the actions I see people taking are around updating their resume and applying to jobs, or going on LinkedIn and scanning jobs, or going to Indeed and looking for postings. And this can feel really good, right? Because it feels like we're taking action in some way, right? So we might spend hours updating our resume, or maybe we'll even hire someone to update our resume and make it look pretty and make it talk about us in an impressive way. Or we'll spend hours scanning job postings, looking for something that looks interesting, writing a cover letter, sending out that snazzy new resume. This feels productive, like we are fixing our situation, like we're taking action. But if you've done this, or perhaps you're in the midst of doing it now, you know that this is basically a black hole of despair. And these actions, in very few cases, lead to something worthwhile. Because actually, these job postings, so few of them are actually read by humans. I think the stat is only 2% of applications to jobs posted online are ever read by human eyes. Right? If you're, as someone who's hired through LinkedIn, I have actually done that before. This was for a small business, and I was the hiring manager. I had no support or really around me to review applications. And to my posting in, a week, 10 days, I probably got 500 applications. And I was honestly only able to review about 200 of them. And that took a lot out of me. And I just picked from the 200. I just chose the ones that looked the best, and then I went from there. Those people got very lucky. And when I gave you that stat, right, only 2% are read by human eyes. When you think about a large multinational that's recruiting, a lot of those are just read by AI. They're scanned for keywords or certain criteria. So it's very, very hard to get through these screenings if you are just simply applying and waiting to hear back. Plus, the other reason that this doesn't really work, the other reason that I'm talking about this is because if you're feeling lost professionally, how do you know what jobs to look for? How do you know how to update your CV? Because you haven't been doing any of the work required to figure out what would be the best next step for you. Updating your resume, applying to jobs, it's like you're going to the end of the process without having done the process. Okay, so there's kind of two big issues. It's where everyone starts. It feels like, oh, I know, I'll just start looking at jobs on LinkedIn, but it's totally wasted energy. Not only are you not clear on where you're going, but you're applying into a black box. You're applying into a wormhole where you're never going to see your application again. Okay, so the issue is this. When you feel lost, don't update your resume. Don't immediately go to a job board and start scanning for opportunities. Instead, you want to start talking to people. Lots and lots and lots of people. And I did a whole episode on people when I launched the podcast, but like no one listened to it. It has like half the amount of listens as every other one of my podcasts. And who knows why that is? Maybe it just got hidden when I launched, because I launched with a couple episodes at once, or maybe people are scared of this topic, right? People don't like the idea. When I say talk to people, talk to lots and lots and lots of people, I think people have a negative reaction, which I'm going to talk about. But the reason I say this, before I get into that, the reason I say talk to people is because people are literally the lifeblood of your career. They are going to guide you by answering your questions and your concerns, right? If you're feeling lost, the way that you're going to figure out where you're going is by having conversations. People are going to inspire you because if you're feeling lost, if you don't know what comes next, right? They're going to open your eyes to ideas you haven't even thought of. There's only so far you can get in your head with your own ideas, right? If you're only using yourself, you're limited to your frame of reference. You know, this is why working in a team is so important. This is why diversity is so important, right? So when you don't talk to people, you are not making an informed decision. People also, obviously, they open doors by connecting you to people they know, and ultimately, when the time is right, recommending you. You know, really who I work with are people who feel lost, who feel burned out or demotivated professionally, and they're not sure what comes next, right? So if you are not sure what comes next, do not start updating your resume. Do not start scanning job postings as your first port of call. Instead, you want to talk to people. Because not that many people listened to my episode on people, I'm going to just recap some of the points from that episode now on how to actually talk to people, how to make this not scary. Because I guarantee you, when I say talk to people, talk to lots and lots and lots of people, there's some of you who are listening to me who are saying, oh my God, no, don't tell me to do that. Some of the reactions to me saying that will be, and I don't want to waste people's time, right? I don't know what to say, right? What would I even say to them? And I don't want to waste their time. And, it's awkward if I ask for help. It's awkward and people are going to judge me because it's going to look like I don't have my shit together. I don't know where I'm going. And people aren't going to want to give up time in their busy schedule to talk to me, right? That's almost like too big a favor to ask. Okay, so if those are your reactions, I hear you. Those are all really normal reactions, and I'm going to counter all of them right now. Because those reactions that you're having, That's what's preventing you from figuring out where you want to go. Because as I said before, there's only so far you can get with your own brain and Google, right? It's really about people and having conversations. And I almost think I might do a whole series of episodes around this cornerstone and different points about how to do it, because it really is so, so important. So, okay, let me push back on all of your rebuttals, your disagreements with talking to people. So first, let me just reframe by saying you are not asking for a job, right? I think a lot of people think that having conversations or networking, and I specifically don't like to use that word because it's so triggering for people. They have this really cringe association with a networking event with a name tag and business cards, and it's all very 90s. But you're not asking for a job. If you're feeling lost, you have to have conversations because this is how you figure things out. So think about having conversations as you are exploring where to direct your career next, and you're having informational interviews. Okay, people forget about this step, the informational interviews, the conversations where you learn stuff, you're curious. You're not asking for anything except to understand, except to learn. Okay, so you're not asking for a job, you're asking for time to ask questions and learn. Okay, so if you're worried about wasting people's time, about taking up people's time, that people won't want to talk to you, that it's too much to ask people to spend 20 or 30 minutes with you, let me tell you this. We have evolved as a species to cooperate and collaborate with each other, right? We evolved in tribes. And there's been many studies, but the one that sticks in my head that I like to talk about is the study where a group of people were given $100. And half of them were told, spend this money on yourself. And the other half were told, spend this money on someone else. And the ones who spent the money on someone else felt better. They reported higher scores of happiness and well-being. And you're going to be able to relate to this yourself, right? Think about any time that anyone has ever asked you for advice, right? And maybe they've even asked you for advice about your career, right? And how you built it and sharing your wisdom. So the question is, how did you feel when you were asked? You probably felt honored. You probably were excited to share your hard-won wisdom because we love talking about ourselves and it makes us feel good, like we made decisions that can be helpful and useful to other people if we're able to share our advice. So remember this, people like talking about themselves and sharing their wisdom. Okay. And they can always say no. Right? People can always say no, and you don't have to make that mean anything about you, right? That maybe they don't have time or capacity to have a conversation right now. But I guarantee you, if you ask people, especially if you ask people that you know or kind of know or connected to in some way, they will make time. They will make 20 minutes to talk with you. Okay. So remember that. 2, a lot of people don't know what to say. Right. And I get that, right? You do want to be prepared, right? You want to have questions. You don't want to waste people's time by not knowing what to say. But it's really very simple to know what to say. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that now. Make a list of any career idea you think is interesting, anyone you think is doing something cool, anything you've ever thought of. Don't let your fears and insecurities stop you. Just write down any idea you've ever had. And then you ask yourself, what do I want to know about this idea? Like, what are the questions that I would need to answer in order to figure out if this is a good fit for me or not? Just whatever comes to mind. And then, and this is really important, all of your fears and concerns about the idea that would maybe not have you write it down to begin with or make you write it off as not possible, write those down. Write those down for the idea and turn those into questions. Turn those into the questions that you ask, because this is how you explore your ideas. This is how you actually get the information you need to make an informed decision. Better to have those conversations with people actually doing that thing and get the information and then make an informed decision than just to close the door because of something you're assuming without actually having done your research. So do your research, find out if your fears and concerns are legitimate or not. And then you can close the door for good if they are, right? And you can make that decision. But right now, if an idea keeps poking your brain, it's because you haven't actually explored it and you're just letting your fears get in the way. So you do know what to say, right? Just do what I just said and you'll have some questions. Okay. The last concern I want to talk about is this idea that, people are going to judge me. I don't want to look stupid. Kind of this idea of I should have my shit together. People are going to not think well of me if I say I don't know what I'm doing professionally and I have questions. And so first I'll say, when you're worried that other people will judge you, it's because you are judging yourself. It's your judgment because you don't know what other people think, right? So your projected judgment of other people is really just your own judgment of yourself. Okay. And you've created that judgment, who knows how, right? But I think in our society, there is definitely this kind of cult of individualism. And it's very common for people to think that they should be able to do it by themselves, right? Like smart people should be able to do it themselves. And I don't know, this idea that being confused or lost means we've done it wrong. Maybe because I work with a lot of millennials and most of our parents mostly had one job for their whole career, right? Kind of stayed in one lane where we're moving around much more. And so maybe there's an assumption that if we stray from what we were originally doing, that we've somehow messed up. Okay, but I'm here to tell you that all of that's just bullshit. Don't judge yourself. It's totally normal to have inflection points in your career, and it's totally fine to feel lost. It's good. It's normal, right? It means you're growing out of an old version of yourself and into someone new. And then if you are actually organized and intentional and vulnerable enough to go to someone and say, hey, I'm at this inflection point. I'm exploring what comes next. I'd love to learn more about your career. I mean, this shows me someone who has their shit together. Right? If someone 10 years my junior came up to me and asked me that, hey, Anne, I've been working in finance, but I'm miserable. And I've always thought coaching was really interesting. I have a couple questions. I'm exploring what I want to do next, and I really want to do this right. I really want to make an intentional, aligned decision. I'd love to talk to you about how you built your career in coaching, how you built your business. Do you have 20, 30 minutes for us to connect? I'd be like, this person has their shit together and is really mature. Okay. So it's totally normal to feel lost. And if you are taking action through it by having conversations, you are doing an exceptional job and you should be proud of yourself. So stop judging yourself. There's absolutely no reason to judge yourself for exploring what comes next. Okay, so that's it. Basically, the point of this podcast is to tell you, don't go to updating your resume and applying to jobs. This is something that comes much later. The first step, if you are feeling lost, if you do not know what you want to do next, or if you have a couple ideas but you're not sure, the first step is to have conversations. Lots and lots and lots of conversations. And eventually, through those conversations, you're going to find something that interests you. Okay. And you're going to be excited about it. Maybe you're going to do a side project. And through that side project, you're going to meet people, but certainly through having conversations, you will have met a lot of people. And then those people can help you because you've already built a relationship with them. They can help you apply for jobs, right? They can help you get your foot in the door because you've already built a relationship with them that's not about getting your foot in the door. You've built a relationship with them through your enthusiasm and interest about a topic that they're also interested in. Okay, so only start applying to stuff once you actually know where you're going. And the only way to figure out where you're going when you feel lost is by having conversations. I think the reason that we default to updating our resume and applying to jobs is just because it's action we can take by ourselves without interacting with another human. And a lot of people get nervous about interacting with another human, but just go back and listen to my counterpoints to all your fears and insecurities. And if talking to people feels uncomfortable, ask yourself why and write down whatever comes out. And those are your limiting beliefs. That is what is keeping you from this absolutely critical part of creating a career and a life that works for you. And the last thing I'll say is this: after you've had lots and lots of conversations, you're also going to know how to position yourself, which is going to help you with your resume, which is going to help you with your cover letter, right? These are really box ticking exercises for HR, because once you have the relationship with someone, that's what's going to get your application to the top of the pile, right? The relationship is going to help you get in front of the hiring manager instead of just applying through the Indeed portal, the LinkedIn portal, which, no one's ever going to see. 2% are going to be read by human eyes. So if you built the relationship because you've been talking to that person already about other stuff, your application is going to go straight to the right person. And then, the resume, the cover letter, it's going to be not that important, because what's going to be more important is that person's referral and recommendation for you. Yeah, I've been talking to Cecilia for a couple months. She's done a consulting project for me. Or yeah, I had a conversation with her. She seems really sharp. I think you should consider her for this position, right? That's going to go a really, really long way, further than any fancy formatting or keywords on your resume. So yeah, it's never about updating your resume. It's always about having conversations. Have an amazing week. Hey, if you're ready to create an energizing career you love, one that is simply an extension of who you are and how you want to live your life, then I want to invite you to schedule a consultation. We'll get to the bottom of what's going on for you and exactly where you need to focus to bring your career and life into alignment. It's free. Just head on over to thecareer.studio/schedule to find a time that works for you. Or if you're enjoying and getting value from these episodes, I'd love you to leave a short review on whatever podcast app you use. This helps other people like you find and get value from the podcast too.